I'm here to show my junk journal. It's actually a junk journal Tome. So this is the front. Here's the back. I know I'm up pretty close because I want you to see everything. So, and here's the back. So I'm just going to get right into it. So we open the first page. Here's the inside cover. And I've added lace here. This is actually a vintage recipe book, Tome, junk journal, whatever you may want to call it. And I've got this book belongs to, so there's room to write your name here. Here's a little glassine bag that I made, and it's got images in here, room to write on the back. This one here is another image, and there's room to write on the back. And here's another image that I've stitched all the way around and backed it with tea-dyed paper. There's this one here. Has a tag in here, which I've stitched all the way around. And we flip the page, and I got a belly band here, and I've got some tucks in here. This is just a vintage, different language, some kind of receipt. This one here is, it's got like a list of groceries that they purchased with that's digital tea dyeing or coffee dyeing. Here's another piece that is one of my printables. Same thing on the back. So there's lots of room to write in this book. We just got a tea-dyed paper here. All of these are tea-dyed papers. Come on. I'm going to turn the page. I got to watch my camera. For some reason, I can't stop this auto-focusing business. I've got a doily here that I've tea-dyed, and more tea-dyed papers with images printed on. Very sweet. There's 4 signatures in this book. I didn't count the pages, but there's many. Baking up some love. And the other side of the doily. Places to write. Some vintage journal or vintage ledger paper. More of my printables, and this is a printable with tea-dyed paper sewn on the back, and this is a glassine bag that I've added lace to. So that's the first signature. This is the second signature. And this is a tuck spot for many, many things. If you don't want to use these in here, you don't have to. You can tuck your own things. This is just something to write on. Here are other things that you can write on the back. This is a vintage paper in French. That on the back. And I've got a couple of tags. And this is also a vintage image, nests and eggs. I thought it would work okay. So then we're moving on. There's some vintage, actually it's retro ledger paper. Some of the book pages that I got from a recipe book. This is watercolor paper that I've added in each signature. Here's a tuck spot. There's that one, and there's tea-dyed paper on the back. This one also has tea-dyed paper on the back. Came from a vintage cookbook. More ledger. Here I've added a belly band, stitched it on the bottom, and added this, and you can write on the back of that. Lots of places to add recipes, maybe your grandmother's recipes, or, you know, recipes that you want to keep. There's lots of space in this journal. The happiness is homemade. Here's a dairy top, and more from that vintage cookbook. More ledger. Places to add things. Excuse me. More ledger again. This is also from the vintage cookbook. And here I've added a glassine bag, and I've glued it to this page. Added a little bit of lace and ephemera here, and a button, and a couple of places that you can write on. Here's a couple of vintage images. There's that one. There's this one here. This is from Betty Crocker. There's lots of space on the back. More cookbook pages. Here I've added a double-sided paper clip, and I've added lace. This is a mason jar. Other side has more vintage lace added to the paper clip. All can be removed. All the things in here that are tuck spots or whatever can be removed, and you can add in your own things if you so choose. This is one of my printouts. This has been sewn on, and here I added a Great American Recipes card. There's how to microwave on the back, and Texas brownies recipe here. This is my third signature, lace added. Here's another glassine bag that I made, and added this little butter image and a button and some lace. some book page underneath, some recipes, and this is all stitched together. More of the vintage cookbook pages. Here is another band that I made, a vintage image, all stitched together with some tea dye paper on the back. I found this and I thought it was quite fitting. It says menu, so I've used it. So you can write on the back, add anything you like to it. This is another vintage piece of paper that I have, and I've put digital tea staining on the back. These are actually real tea staining. I should have mentioned that earlier. When I say it's digital, it looks a little bit different. So as we get into this, is a different type of pop-in. I've stitched all the way around this and added that image. Here is a tag with digital tea dye. This is a vintage image that you can write on the back. And in here I've added a vintage image. It says chocolate, and I don't read French, so I can't say any more than that. I thought chocolate was good. And more watercolor paper. Tea-dyed paper. I kind of changed it up a little bit here. This is an image from that vintage journal or vintage cookbook. And these are pieces I pulled out to stick in there where you could write on, add recipes to. Here's another vintage receipt with digital tea dye in the back. More tea dyed paper that I did. And here I've sewn on a band on the bottom from the vintage cookbook. I've added this image, which you can write on the back. It's all been stitched all the way around, and I've added a tag so you have places to write. I've also added this jello image, and that has tea dyed, and it's been stitched all the way around. This is a technique I did in Photoshop with splatters. There's a broken egg, more watercolor paper. Here is the other half of that, and I put in a library card. You can tuck a lot of things in these. Here is a belly band I added, the vintage image, and it's been stitched with tea-dyed paper on the back. These have a couple of little tucks. So this is a tuck, and I've added this image so you can write on the back. There's lots of space here. And here's another image that I added. You can write on the back of that one. More tea-dyed paper. And these are in a tuck that I stitched. This has been stitched all the way around and has tea-dye paper there And this is a Homemaker's Digest. It has been stitched all the way around with tea dye paper added to the back. And more of that vintage cookbook. Tea dye papers. And now we're going into the last signature. So here I added a glassine short bag, and I stitched all the way around her and added some tea dye paper. This is a vintage image that I've added tea dye paper to and stitched all the way around. More tea dyed paper. This is tea dyed paper as well. Vintage cookbook, tea dye paper, watercolor paper. This is more tea dye from the vintage cookbook, tea dye paper, scrapbook paper, and here I've added a little band here and added a tag. Down here is a tuck spot. You can tuck a lot of things in there. And this one says chocolate too, so I thought, it's not my language, so I didn't know really what it said. But I put it in there. You can write on the back of that. And here I've added a tag in a tag, really. I've stitched this all the way around, like all the way 3 sides, and added this tag in here. I've added a couple of vintage images here. This one, and it's stitched all the way around with tea dye on the back. This one here is a vintage image, and it's also tea dyed and stitched. And here's another tuck spot down here. And I've used this image. And you can write on the back. Here's another tag that has digital tea dye. This I added. It's a pasteurized whipping cream label or lid, and I still tuck things in here. And here's another scrapbook paper. This is tea dye paper, vintage cookbook paper, more tea dye, watercolor paper, tea dye paper, vintage cookbook paper. This is tea dye paper that I've printed on, tea dye paper printed on, and here is a number of things in this little tuck spot. There's a vintage image, and on the back is tea dye, real tea dye. And here's another one of those aprons with more places to write. And in here I made a little envelope that has a couple of spots that you can write on or add recipes to. That just tucks in there like that. And at the end, on the back page, I've added an envelope, a large envelope, and I've added some scrapbook paper that you can add your recipes to or do whatever you like. So that's my, I don't know what to call it. It's my tome, my recipe tome. So I hope you like it. It will be, I think I'm going to put it up, I think I'm going to put it up for sale on eBay, and I will leave the link below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.